Welcome to the Hamilton Pit here at London's Victoria Palace Theatre. For ages now I've been meaning to do a rig rundown video for all the bass equipment here at Hamilton. So with the help of my trusty cameraman, Mr. Mark Wraith, who just so happens to double as our guitarist here at Hamilton, we thought we'd give it a go today. So here we are. So I'll try to remember everything and see how we go. So I'll start with the basses. My main bass for the whole show is this Overwater 5-string, one of their J basses. I've had this for about, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, something like that. It's a really great bass. It's nice and bright. It's a ash body, maple front, maple neck. So really bright woods and just great pickups on it, actually. I really like these Bartolini. They're what we call dual inline hum cancellers. So essentially like a J pickup, but side-by-side coils which help hum cancel. And in this kind of environment with lots of cabling and, you know, LCD screens and loads of stuff going on, you kind of need to keep things as hum-free as possible. So these do that really well. And also they've got just quite a sort of a really nice characterful sound. So they're quite bright, but there's a really nice kind of, like I say, characterful kind of mid-range to them, which cuts through really nicely. So I've got the Bartolini pickups and a John East Uni preamp, so the 4-knob version. Again, another really nice piece of kit, very clean sounding. Works really well with the Bartolini pickups. And actually, this combo was kind of sort of stumbled across by Phil Mulford, who's a fantastic player in London, and he worked sort of quite closely with Chris May from Overwater, you know, in the early days. Trying to work out what electronics went really well with what in these basses. So this kind of setup of dual inline Bartolini pickups with a John East preamp seems to be kind of like the go-to choice in London. But saying that, actually, Overwater have started making their own pickups now, and their latest versions actually are sounding actually closer and closer to what I like about these. So that's a great option too. One of the things I really like about this bass is it's a 35-inch scale. So an extra inch longer than a standard scale length bass. And what that does is it really helps with the B string, keeping it super tight and really punchy. And for a show like this, there's quite a few songs that go really low, you know, down to low C's, sometimes even the low B. So there's songs like Right Hand Man, which is a good example of getting down really low. And also Yorktown is like a big number towards the end of the first half, where I'm digging into a load of low Ds on that. So you don't want a sort of flappy, kind of loose sounding B string. You want it to sound really tight and punchy, and this really does that in spades. So this is a fantastic bass to start with, and it's I use it on most of the shows I do. So yeah, I use that quite a lot. The second bass that's worth talking about, let's have a look, is this hollow body one. So we've got this is a Lackland hollow body, and it's what's nice about this is it's kind of getting that sound of the Hofners but it's a sort of regular 34-inch scale. So it keeps in tune a little bit further up. Sometimes those short scale basses, they're fantastic actually, and they're very in vogue at the moment. But sometimes, not always, they can go a little bit out of tune, like intonation-wise, when you play up high. And the song that I have to play in this show is right up high for most of the songs. So a 34-inch scale kind of seemed to suit for this show. So when King George comes on and does his little bit in the show, we kind of do a kind of Beatles-esque kind of song. So it really suits this kind of instrument. So it's got the flat wounds. I think these are labellas. I think I remember putting labellas on early days. And it's kind of that thing of playing with a plectrum and palm muting to get that kind of really Beatles sound, or almost like that Beach Boys sound as well. So that works really well for that particular song, and it comes back in the second half as well. Okay, so that's the basses. Let's look at the pedal board next, because that's kind of like the hub of everything. So if my trusty cameraman could come round, we'll have a little look at this. It's a fairly straightforward board. I mean, it's fairly big, as you can see, but we're getting electric stuff and double bass stuff on here. So I'll go through the electric side of things first. And so let's start with the preamp. So this preamp over here is the EBS Stanley Clark. It's actually an acoustic preamp. So it's just kind of got this super clean sound. But what I really like about this, I mean, I really love EBS gear anyway. I've got their Microbass 2 pedal, which I use for my electric basses. And I often just use that when I've got just a single instrument and I want to kind of blend a clean sound and sometimes with a bit of a dirty sound. So I find that works really well when I'm on one instrument. But what I really love about the Stanley Clark one is that it's 2 channels with identical EQ, which is I personally find really helpful on a show when essentially all you're trying to do is kind of match up the volumes and sort of EQ of 2 instruments. So having the EQ being the same on both channels is a really useful thing. So I'll just talk you through the controls for a second. And it's like I say, it's a fantastic pedal. It's almost perfect. So you start with you've got your gain for each channel. And then you've got your usual kind of EQ of bass, middle, and treble, and you can adjust the frequencies of your mid-range as you get on a lot of pedals, that kind of sweepable mid-range, and then you can boost or cut. One really useful thing, which actually you'd probably use more on a double bass, is it's got this thing that's just described as filter, and that can work in 2 different ways. You can essentially have it as a notch filter for, say, a double bass that's feeding back on a stage. So you can actually notch it over to the notch filter side and just find that frequency that needs cutting out. Or another way you can use it is to put it onto the high pass mode, where you can actually just roll off everything below a certain frequency. So that's actually, the high pass filters are becoming more and more prevalent in pedals, and they're a very useful thing just for getting rid of some of the very lowest frequencies. So if I was using this pedal for a double bass, I would actually use that a little bit more, but as it's 2 electrics, I've just gone down to its lowest, essentially off setting. So actually one of the things I really love about this preamp is that if you were to use it for a double bass and you wanted to blend the sound of a pickup and also a microphone, it's perfect for that, because you can switch channel B to an XLR input on the back of the preamp, that is. So in this instance, you can see here I've got a pickup on the bridge and also a really nice DPA mic on it as well. So what you can actually do is the pickup will have a jack output, and that can go into channel A as normal. You switch channel B to XLR input and take the DPA mic into that, and then you can blend the 2 together to get your perfect sound. What I find about this bass Balsarite pickup is that it's got a really nice bottom end to it, but I actually prefer the top end of the DPA mic. So you can kind of accentuate, the best bits of each side of things and blend them together to get that perfect sound. So that preamp is an absolute winner. Especially if you're a double bass player, obviously having Stanley Clarke designed the thing, it makes sense that it's such a great pedal for that. But what I love about it is it's just super clean, so it seemed to suit two electrics as well. So I've got the 5-string active bass and a sort of passive hollow body, and I can just perfectly blend the sounds and volumes together. So that's a real winner, that pedal. Okay, so let's talk about the next bit of the signal chain. So we've had two electric basses go into that EBS pedal. So the next thing that goes into is this 4-loop switching pedal made by Gigrig. Essentially, it's kind of like a true bypass kind of pedal, and the idea is that it's got 4 effects loops built into it, and you put all your effects into those loops, and without switching it on, they won't be in your signal chain. So I think these things came into existence because sometimes someone might have like an old vintage pedal that was quite noisy and they didn't always want that in their signal chain. So by putting it in a loop, then it's not there if you don't want it to be. So the idea is, if you look down here, if I ask my trusty cameraman to help me, all the pedals are actually left permanently on. And then, for example, if I want octave 1 to come on, I will just bring it on in its loop there. So I'll just activate the loop, and suddenly that brings that pedal into the signal chain. So what's really nice about this is I've got 2 different octavers for 2 different sounds. I use octave 1 for, I think it's Washington on there. What's it called? Washington on your side? Is that what it's called? And that's got quite a sort of deep subby sound.
Must be nice to have Washington on your side. So we doubled the size of the government just for the trouble with much of our previous government size. Look in his eyes, see how he lies. Follow the scent of his enterprise. Centralizing national credit and making American credit competitive. And if we don't stop it, we ain't in a minute. I have to resign. Somebody has to stand up for the South. Somebody has to stand up to his mouth. There's a fire trying to douse happening out to inside the house. The cabinet, grabbing it down. Isn't gonna listen to.
And then later on in the show, there's a song called, is it Blow Us All Away? Is that what it's called? Mark's nodding at me here. And that's got more of a classic sort of octave sound with the original sound in there, as well as the lower octave. But what's really nice about it is, for example, loop 3, I've got this MXR tremolo and the bass chorus deluxe, both in that loop. So I can bring those 2 pedals on with 1 switch. And actually, for a part of the song, Blow Us All Away, we have the chorus, tremolo, and octaver on. So it's fantastic having this switcher pedal really close to where I'm sitting, and I can bring 3 pedals on like that just by hitting those two switches at once.
Someday I would blow us all away. Ladies, I'm looking for Mr. George E. Who made a speech last week. I voted my last speaker. He dispatched my father's legacy in front of the crowd. I can't have that. I make my father proud.
I saw him dressed up Broadway, talking a lot. He was going to
Well, I'll go visit his body. Hey, y'all are pretty good in your frocks. Somehow when I get back, we all strip down to our socks.
So it's a very useful thing to have, and it's sort of like a get yourself out of trouble pedal, because if anything goes down, I have had one of these pedals go wrong on me once and just stop working, and by having it in a loop, you can just get it out of your signal chain and your sound continues. So so we've got the 2 MXR bass octave deluxes, and then the bass chorus deluxe and the tremolo. So they're kind of good industry standard bass pedals. The MXR, the bass octave actually is really good because it's got the girth controls, that kind of very smooth, deep octave that you might hear on maybe an EBS octave pedal, but the growl is a bit more of like a Boss OC2 kind of slightly more middly sound, so you can kind of blend the 2 together. So quite a kind of, like I say, sort of characterful sound from those MXR pedals. That octave pedal in particular gets used a lot. A lot of people like it because it's got a bit of a best of both worlds, that sort of OC2 kind of mid-range growl, and also some nice deep stuff as well with the girth control. So essentially you've got the EBS preamp going into that looper pedal, and then straight out to the DI, which is an Avalon, one of those huge Avalons. I'll stick a picture of that in a minute. But the industry standard kind of Avalon that gets used on a lot of gigs, gives a big chunky fat sound. Always nice to have at the end of your signal chain for just beefing things up, you know. But essentially the tuner is just from a tuner out, so that's not in the signal chain. And that's the electric side of things, really, nice and simple. But the two winners really are this beautifully clean Stanley Clark EBS preamp, and then this gig rig switcher, because it's just it's a bit of a revelation to me, really, because it's something I've watched guitarists have a lot on their pedal boards, and I've kind of thought, oh, it's overboard. There's so much stuff, you know, to work with. But in this instance, where you can't really have sound cut out on you at any point, it's a fantastic thing to have, because it just keeps everything out of the signal chain until it's needed.
Of course, I forgot. I wish there was a war that we could prove that we're worth more than anyone organ in the world. Can I buy? Nice. While we're talking, can we offer you some food?
In terms of the double bass side of things, I've actually got a Fishman Platinum Pro EQ pedal. Essentially, you've got just the one input. I use this just for the bass Balserite pickup I've got on the instrument, and you've just got a nice suite of kind of gain, bass, middle, and treble. We can adjust the frequency of the mid-range, and it's got a notch as well, so we can notch out any sort of troublesome frequencies in the middle. And you've got a nice built-in tuner for when it's off.
The late 80s, I traveled the wide, Later, my dad's coming present. I'll be my back's down yet. Charlie D, I'm gonna meet you. President's handling and cabinet. That I am to be the Secretary of State. Great, I'm already Senator. I'm just got holding waiting for me when I step in the place. My friend James Madison right in the face.
So essentially, the double bass signal path is fairly straightforward. We've just got the bass Balserite pickup going into the Fishman, and what I've actually done is I've put another one of those TU3S always on Boss tuners in the signal chain. The reason for that is I quite like to have a kind of an always on tuner with double bass, mainly because I'm playing here with 4 other string players, and let's say, for example, there might be someone covering for the day who's maybe not got the best tuning. What I can do is, if I'm in any doubt, I can have a quick look down at my tuner in real time and double check that my note is fine and it's not me, because sometimes you can sort of doubt yourself. So it's quite nice to have that, and I've also got it in a kind of position on the board where it's perfectly in eye line for when I'm playing the double bass, and especially when bowing, I can have a little look down and just double check I'm in tune, you know.
I say the king is he in Jersey? If you repeat yourself again, I'm gonna scream. Honestly, look at me, please don't. Not your interest. Don't modulate the key, then not debate with me. Why should it see? I don't know. Why should it see? Alexander, please. Where I'd rather be divisive than decisive about the niceties.
So yeah, that's the signal chain of the electric stuff and the double bass stuff. Like I mentioned before, there's a DPA mic on this this double bass here, which actually has its own signal path, so they have a little bit more control out front. One thing I would mention actually in terms of setup here is, like I said, I've got the pickup here and I've also got the mic. Now the mic is actually the nicest sounding part of what's going on here, but a mic in a pit is going to pick up all the noise. I'm right next to a percussionist, there's other string players and stuff. So what I like to do actually in terms of my own personal monitoring is I will have like 75% of my pickup sound coming back to me and only 25% of the mic. So it sort of limits how much of the room noise I'm getting back into my cans. But out front, they'll probably swap that round, so it'd be more like 75% of the mic sound out front and only 25% of the pickup. Just because those mics are particularly nice, they sound great with the Arco stuff. So yeah, that's kind of how things work here. And then we've all got our own little personal monitors here, so we can hear whatever we want to, whatever mix we prefer. Okay, so let's move on to the keyboard side of things. There's about half a dozen tunes which are on synth bass in Hamilton, which are great fun to get stuck into. And I play this Arturia Keylab 25, and it's just essentially like a controller keyboard. All the sounds come from Mainstage, and thankfully programmed by someone who's much better, at that stuff than me. And what's funny is also the Keys 2 player, which is right down the other end of the pit. As they're scrolling through their patches for the show, if we get to a song that's got synth bass in it, their patch button will change my patches as well. So it's very handy for me. Although I did have one moment when I was playing one of the songs, I think it's called Cabinet Battle 2 or something like that. And there was a chap coming in just covering on that chair for the day. And he decided to start scrolling through a load of the patches to see what was coming up for the rest of the show. So he started scrolling through different bass sounds and at different octaves as well. And I was desperately trying to change the octave to the right octave and all that thing. So sort of calamity ensued. But normally it works fine. And it's a nice sort of simple part of the show for me. I just play the song and the sounds are done. So that's great.
So I took it. I always considered you a friend. By that has to you changed parties to run against my father-in-law. I changed parties to seize the opportunity I saw. I swear, you're right to be the issue on the table. France is on the verge of war with England. Now do we provide aid and troops to our French allies, or do we stay out of it? Now remember, my decision on this matter is not subject to congressional approval. The only person you have to convince is me, Secretary Jefferson. You have the floor, sir. When we were on death's door, when we were needy, we made a promise. We signed a treaty. We needed money and guns and half a chance. Who provided those funds?
Okay, so we've talked quite a lot about the equipment side of things in terms of sounds. But it's worth mentioning, actually, that on a show like this, a lot of the techniques are what create the sounds. So you've got a lot of songs like Schuyler Sisters, which have that regular kind of fingerstyle technique that you'd expect to hear. But also there's quite a few songs that actually use kind of the palm muting technique. That was something that I got kind of heavily into when joining this show. So there's a song called Right Hand Man, and that uses a lot of that thing where you use the sort of the fleshy part of your palm down near the bridge, and you're playing with your thumb. And it creates a really cool sound, very sort of deep and subby, and works perfectly for this sort of hip-hop environment,
Men are all lining up to put me upon a pedestal, writing letters to relatives, embellishing my elegance and eloquence. The elephant is in the room. The truth is in your face when you hear the British cannons go boom. treaty. We put a stop to the bleeding as the British take Brooklyn. Night takes rook, but look here how fun.
Also, sometimes we also use like a plectrum and palm muting as well. So there's a couple of songs like We Know is another one.
And immigrants embezzling our government. I can all see that your career is done. Hope you save some money for your daughter and son. You best wanna run back where you come from. You don't even know what the rest of me has done. Yes, you have nothing, I don't have to tell you anything at all. Unless I can prove that I never broke the law, then you promise not to tell another soul. Fire! Shot him in the side, yes, he. I'm satisfied. Got it. Oh, we won. What is the meaning of this? Mr. Bird, get a medical lieutenant. Yes, sir. We will never agree with these young men that speak for thank you for your service. Let's ride. Sir, meet me inside.
And they're both kind of using that kind of muted thing to get the subby sound, but the plectrum is giving the front edge of the notes quite a lot of attack. So yeah, so essentially it's not just simply, you know, looking at the effects side of things to change the sounds. There's a lot of techniques involved, and you know, a little bit more than maybe you would have in other shows. You know, we've got the standard finger style stuff, but the you know, the plectrum comes out quite a lot, not only on this but on the hollow body as well. And the palm muting is something that's yeah, I've got more and more into over the years, and I sort of use it on other gigs and stuff now because it creates this really deep subby sound, and can work really well, you know, in a lot of instances. So yeah, so I think that's pretty much everything to talk about today. If you've got any questions, feel free to you know, stick them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them, or maybe even do a second video with all the things I've probably forgotten. But yeah, thanks for watching, and catch you next time.